Well, hello and welcome to my channel, The Social Canvas. My name is Carol. Thank you for joining me this afternoon or whenever you are watching it. Could be this evening, could be this morning, could be the middle of the night. Anyway, I wanted to show you how to paint something from a photograph. My lovely friend John lives in Florida and he takes the most wonderful photographs of sunsets, and I just picked one up. I did print it off on a piece of just ordinary paper so the colours don't come out so bright, but you know what, I'm going to use it as a guideline just to show you how to do it. I did a quick one earlier, as you can see on the side here. I did make the horizon a little bit darker than you can see on this one, and of course the shoreline is quite dark on this one as well because he took it probably at night or early in the morning, I'm not sure. So it could be a sunrise or a sunset in this case. But so what you need to do first of all, if you want to get that ready, you can also stop and get that done. I've just prepped my, I've got a small 8 by 10 inch canvas here. Let me just move it back a bit so you can see all of it. Hopefully you can. I'll position my camera right today. And I have prepped it first of all with some burnt sienna and white, because it's what we call an underpainting, because a lot of the colours in this are this kind of colour, as you can see in here. It's always good to prep it so it's nice and dry. So you might want to prep it first of all with a little bit of burnt sienna and white. So burnt sienna is kind of an orangey tone. As you can see, I'm using Winsor and Galleria, and some white. Any white will do. This is also a white, titanium white, just to get a very light wash on it as an underpainting. So brush wise, you can use whatever you've got. I've got a selection here, always do have. I'm probably going to use a mixture of this round one here, and I have another small two size filberts, as they're called. One's a 12 and one's a 6, but I'm aiming to choose other ones. So a pot of water and some kitchen towel for blotting and cleaning is always a good idea. And if you're like me, you forget to use your glasses, and I'm going to try my best to do that. Okay, so it might be good to actually pencil out your horizon line, because I noticed when I did this one, you may not notice this, but my horizon line was just a little off, wasn't quite straight. So I've just done a very thin pencil line somewhere in the middle of mine. You can do it any way you like, just to make sure I get my horizon line nice and straight. So I'm going to go straight in with, and I've got a selection of colours here. I have got some vivid purple, as you can see. I've got some burnt sienna, got some pale violet, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, titanium white, and a little bit of black. I may not use all these colours, but they're there anyway, and I would put a selection on your palette just in case. So first thing I'm going to do, as I said, is it's not going to take too long, this one, because it's not a big painting. So if you've got 20 to 30 minutes, hopefully not longer than that, but I do tend to fiddle around a lot with my paintings. I'm going to choose a colour that I find in my painting first of all, which in this case I think I'm going to choose a little bit of pink going on in here, so that there is a slight graduation in tone. It's a little bit whiter whiter at the top, and then it gets a little bit more orangey down here. So I think I'm going to just go in with a medium-sized brush. Where is it? Where are you? There we go. So a filbert size 12. I'm going to grab a little bit of white on my brush, and I'm just going to cover that at the top a little bit whiter, not too far down. You can put a little bit of burnt sienna in with this, just so it's not white, so I might just put a little tiny bit on my brush just to take off that edge of white. Make it a little bit more. I always put minute amounts in until I'm happy, because I don't want to go too far too soon. So I'm just going to make that area a little bit lighter there, and out here a little bit, and just leave it off as I'm coming down. Don't have to cover it, or you can add little bits in if you want to, like there. Let's just get that in there a little bit. I'm not going to use burnt sienna, I don't think, for my orangey parts of my sky, but don't know yet. As I said, I'm just putting a little bit of that back in there now, just to lighten that up. Okay, that's a little bit lighter at the top, not a lot, but a little bit. And then I'm going to put a touch of red. That's too red. So I'm going to grab some white to make it a soft pink. Don't know where this is going yet. I'm going to see. Let's see. Very soft pink in... That's not quite pink enough, so I'm going to grab a little bit more red, actually a touch of yellow with it, because I want it to be a slightly peachy pink. Yeah, maybe like that. So I've got my horizon line right down here, so I'm actually working a little bit higher than I anticipated. So I'm going to just put that orange in. I'm going to push that into the canvas a little bit. A little bit more red. If you grab too much at once, don't worry about it, just rub a lot of it off on your paper if you've got some handy, or wash it off if you want. So I'm coming in, get a bit more of that pinky tone in here and out here, a little bit, maybe a little bit up there. Wherever you see it. So it's good to work from a photo. So if you can do that, if you ever want to practice, I encourage you to just get a sunset photo or anything like that you want to practice with and go for it. It's always good. Practice makes perfect. I'm certainly not perfect first time round. As I said, that photo is probably not my favourite. I should say my painting is not my favourite, not my photo. But you know, sometimes you just have to practice and see how it comes out first time. So I've got a little pink and purple going on there. Not sure how bright you can see that. Let's switch my light on, but I don't think that's going to help, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, so next step I think for me is put a little bit of orange where I see. So that's a little bit more yellow and with my red to get more of an orange tone. Let's see how orange this turns out. So a little bit more orange you can see with my red. I'll get, yeah, it doesn't matter where you make this. This is really just I'm just going to put that right in the middle. I'm going to have my sun, of course, right in the middle, if I can. I did not manage to get it in the middle on my practice one there, but don't worry about where, you know, your proportions and where you're doing it, because really this is just a test of how to put down the colour for a sunset more than it is placement of things. So I'll get a little bit more of that light orange in there. Wherever you think it goes, wherever you see the colour, put it in your painting, however subtle you do it. I'm going to get a little bit more white actually in with that orange, because as you can see behind the sun here, it's quite a lot lighter and brighter where the sun is shining. So I'm just bringing that lighter tone in, so that when I put my sun in, clouds, etc., it will show up. So I think I'm just going to leave it about there, like that. Okay. Right, so now I'm going to start getting a little bit darker. If you want to put your horizon line in first, you can. So I'm going to make so there's some blues and purples in here, and there's also some little bits of red. It's just playing with the colours in this instance. And I'm going to just grab a little bit of blue, which I don't have. So that was remiss of me for not putting blue out on my palette first time. So I'm going to grab a little bit now and put it down. This is Winsor blue from Winsor New. But any blue will do, really. It's just a matter of mixing it in. I'm just going to put it down where I've got my other colour there. And that's a little, it's quite blue. It's always good to match it up, but it's not quite the same. So I'm going to grab a little touch of red, and I mean a tiny touch of red, just to turn it a little bit of a different colour. You match it up there. It's still not right, so I need a little touch of red in with it to give it a slightly different tone. Sometimes it's best to try it on. Now then, if this is still wet, it will blend. So you might want to go slower and wait for it to dry, get a hairdryer out, or just be patient and go and have a cup of tea, and then put it on, because I'm showing you wet. It's not too wet. Mine's quite dry, but sometimes it's best to wait for that to completely dry before you go in there. So I've made that a little bit dark, but a bit too grey for my liking. So I'm going back with my blue and grabbing a little bit of white in there. You can layer it up, of course, as you wish. Now I'm using a bigger brush for this, but actually I think I might just go to the smaller one because it's going to be easier. So I'll go into the lighter blue, which is blue, white, and a little bit of red. Like that. And there's little bits of purple undertone. Let me just go to my smaller brush. So I've gone to a number 6 because I found that one's a little bit too big. Whoops. Be helpful if I put the right end in the water. Yeah. All right, let me just see if that's a better colour. That's gone a little bit more purpley toned, so let me see. Yeah, it's a little bit better. So I'm going to just put some touches in here where I see them. I'm going very lightly with my brush. A little bit out here. This is coming on very light, so I'm going to layer it up as I go along. You can use your finger if you want to soften any edges, but I'll show you how to do it with a little bit of lighter colour here in a minute. Again, I'm not trying to be too particular with this. If you're working with professional paints, then they tend to be thicker. But also if you put too much water in with it, of course, you're going to get a more transparent look. So, but I'm going to just layer up because I don't try not to use too much expensive paints when I'm just showing you how, because most people that come to my channel, I'm assuming, are just beginners. That's what I'm aiming for, and you don't want to spend a lot on paints until you really know if you want to try it a bit more. So these colours that I'm putting in there right now are quite light, and this is not a blue bit just here, but I'm going to put it in anyway and go over it a bit later. Something going on there. It's got a bit more red tone in it, that. So I'm going to probably go back and put that in. A little bit of red in with that. Let's see, some little red tone. It's hard to tell sometimes what colours they are until you try it on your canvas. So you see I've got a little bit of red in with my blue, and it's coming a little bit more out. That colour there. Of course, now I've gone back to that one, so I'm going to put a little bit of that red back in here. It's a little bit darker than what I've got too. But no worries, as I said. If you've got 2 or 3 colours on your palette already, you can go backwards and forwards 2 different colours, but honestly then you're going to start blending on your brush, so make sure it's clean before you do too much. I'm trying to use feathery touch, what I call a dry brush also. If you rub a lot of your paint off and try and go over your edge very, very softly like a feather, you'll get what we call a dry brush effect, rather than too much colour there. That's a little bit blue on top of that one. Right, so underneath here we have a bit more blue. I've not got much paint on, so I'm going back to put a bit more in there. A bit more blue in that one, so again, just be careful on your colours. If I'm going too quick for you, of course, you can always stop, rewind, regroup, whatever you want to call it. So you can see where my orange is. I'm trying to go over the top there. I'm not going to put my sun in yet. Right where my sun is going to be. I'm a very visual person, and so if someone said, can you draw, you know, like a turtle or something, I don't know, I'm like, what the heck does a turtle look like, you know? So having a photo of something that you're painting is the best way to go. That's how I work anyway. I cannot just make something up in my head. I'm very poor at that. I'm a visual person through and through. So I've grabbed too much white there. So if you're the same as me, then, you know, grab a photo, anything. I mean, practice with anything you want, but oops, still too light. Got a little bit away from my colour there. Let me go back to it. That's better. Let's see, where am I going with this? Oh, yes, this is kind of loosely done over here. Still need some more colour in this over here. It's gone a bit transparent. Let's see. A little bit of that orange showing through there. I'll just make sure my sun's in the middle. We'll leave that about there. Gets a bit darker, of course, as you get down there. You can see how the sun dips through the cloud a little bit there. So I'm going to grab a little bit more red in with that. Blue. Red and blue make a purple, but of course it's a different colour purple than just using purple. And you have to really use small amounts to build it up, otherwise you just sometimes can go too far. I mean, I've picked up a much darker tone. I'm going to see how much darker that is. Usually the underside of a cloud is darker. I'm not going to overdo that one. Try not to be too, that's a lot bluer up there. Go back and blend this in a little bit in a minute. Right, let's see, just here. So I'm leaving that space there for the sun. I'm just going to put small amounts of that in there. And this is below the sun, sort of a little dip just there, slightly. Doesn't have to be perfection, and I keep saying that, but when you're starting out and you're just working on something. Now I need my bigger brush though, because see how I'm going over the same area more than once, because I haven't got a lot of paint left on my brush, and I've happened to press in a little bit darker. Put a little bit more on now. Let's see, bottom of this one here, and then there's a little faint bit coming from that side. And then down here coming to your horizon line. Let's see, am I straight? I always worry about being straight. I'm just going to put in my horizon line probably about here. So I've penciled it in. Whether I'll keep straight or not is another thing. I'll try my best. Drawing straight lines, never my forte. So I've just briefly put that in. I'm not going to go as dark as I did in the example there. I'm going to do a little bit different. Okay, so here there's a lot of pinks going on as well. So I'm going to use the same brush just because I've got it with this colour on, but I am going to, let's see, make sure I cover well. It's a little bit darker there, and then as you come down here next to your horizon line, it's quite I'm pushing that in a little bit more. I'm going to leave this a little bit loose here because I'm going to add a different tone to it in a minute. See, I've lost some of my straightness there because I've gone over it. That's what I mean. I'm going to leave a little bit of this looser here because of the way the sun's shining down. And I'm going to come out here. This is a lot softer over this side than the other. I'm going to add a little bit of white in with it. Oh, maybe not that much. That's too much. So if you have to reload, just go slow with your colours rather than put too much in at once. I'm coming right up to my line there. What I'm going to do now, because I want this to be quite subtle, I'm just going to go over my edge with that lighter tone, because here it is quite a subtle tone. So I'm going to grab up a teeny amount of red, and I'm talking about a speck back into that. So it's gone a little bit redder, but a little bit white in there. I'm going to play with this one because I'm not really sure how it's going to work out. Make it a little bit pink, but not too pink. So you can see how it's gone a little bit redder in tone. Sorry if I'm not quite in place there. Let's see, this might be way too light. I put a lot of white in with it, so you do have to play with the colour. Let's see. It's not too bad. I'm going to go through with this first. I'm just going to cover some of this area with that just slightly pinkier tone. Keep an eye on your photograph a lot more than you think you need to, because that will keep your eye in the right place where you're painting, basically. Because if you look too much at your painting and not enough at your photograph or your subject, sometimes your painting just doesn't work out right. So okay, so soften that out now. So I was saying earlier about your edges, I'm putting a little bit of white in with my colour now, and I'm just kind of circling a little bit. You can also use the dry brush technique, which means not much on your brush, to soften those edges if you've got a very stark edge. Like some of these edges are a little bit stark, so I'm just going over them a little bit. So that's the wrong colour, so I'm just going over that anyway. This isn't as good as that one, but... And underneath these clouds is a little bit more pink. So I'm just going back to putting a little bit more of the red in with that. Let's see how red that is. A little bit red. It's okay. Who doesn't love a good sunset? I'm getting a little dry on my brush. There's a slight bit of redness sort of going around the top of the clouds. You can't see it that much, but it's just where the glow of the sun is. Best to go to a smaller brush if you can't quite get it. You know, I like to use colours that are in a brighter tone anyway, even if you don't see them, you know, and you want to enhance colour on something. I think it's just fun to play with colours. Okay, so any more red? A little bit more redness in there. You can always go back at any point and, you know, stick your... See, that's a little bit darker, that one, so I'm going to go back and just get a little bit more of my blue and red tone together and just make that a little bit darker. Just a little bit. Oops, actually that's a little bit too dark now. So there's a little more blue in that. I'm just going to bring a little bit of that blue in to this area here if I can. Oops. Of course it doesn't want too much. We'll blend it in well anyway. That's that Winsor blue, but of course it's a bit more of an ultramarine mix, I would say. I always find it hard to define a colour when you're looking at it in a photograph. That's why I said hold your brush up to your photo or your subject and see if it looks like it's working the same. Yeah, you know, I'm getting there. Okay, so I just need to put a little bit more blue tone, I think, very subtly down here. If your brush gets dry and it just doesn't work for you, just give it a wash off and try and start again. See how this is not the same as this example here. As I said, I always probably never work the same actually. Or I improve, there you go. That's probably more like it. I learned from my previous one. I'm just pushing this in so I can really blend that in a bit more. Right, now then, where am I at? Let's see. A little bit more subtle over that side. Not too white. And put a touch of blue in here. It's probably a little bit lighter than it should be, but again, you see how that edge of that bit there is very, very, I'm just going to grab a little bit of white and I'm really like feathering my brush on there to just give it a subtle edge rather than too strong of an edge. I think that's the end of the blue in there then. There's not too much blue apart from that. Maybe a bit more in this. Not much in here, but I'm just going to add a bit anyway. Okay, I might just leave that for now. Okay, before I go any further, it's going to help me to put the sun in. So I'm just getting a very small brush. This is a small round brush. Going to get some white on the end, just like that. And I'm going to put my, I want it right in the middle, I think. So I'm going to put my sun. I think I might make it a little bit bigger than what it is in here. This one's a little distorted. It's not perfectly round, but you know what? If you want to make it perfectly round, it doesn't matter. Or you could make it round and then put some of the clouds going over the top, but I'm just going to make it completely round. Might give that another little coat. So the sun is definitely not yellow. It may look yellow around it, but the sun, not that I should, suggest you look at it. Don't look at the sun. It's yeah, more of a white in tone colour. I think I need a little bit more of that orange around it, so I'm gonna, or orangey pink, so I'm gonna get a little yellow, red and white. Very subtle again. I just want to make that stand out around there. I'll keep mixing until I get to just around here. I'm going to make it a little bit more pinky orange. If that's such a colour, pinky orange, I'm not sure. Just around the outside. And I just might put a little bit more of that pinky orange, little streaky bit coming over there. There you go. That's good. I'm just going to put more of that orange in there as well. And still blend it. It does dry very quickly, of course, so it's very hard to blend if you're only putting minute amounts in. If you see any redness, of course, in your painting, I'm just putting a very soft touch of redness in to brighten some areas up. Like here, there's a bright bit going through there, so I'm just going to put that in there. I've just put a bit of white in that, but I didn't blend it very well, so that's why that white's coming out, but that's okay. I'll get rid of it. And then I'm just going under here and brightening that up area too. All right, now then, I could keep playing with this for a very long time. I'm going to try not to because I'll just will get bored with it. I try not to. I'm just going to put a little bit of that in there anyway. A little bit of that coming into there. You can go back in and put any of these in at any date you want to, or as you're going along, or at the ends. Okay, well, let's do the sea now. Okay, so I'm going to get my bigger brush back again. As you can see in my example over there, I've got kind of a lighter blue. This is not as light as that in the photo, but it's a mixture of sort of grey, light blues, a little bit of purple mixed in. I'm going to start with a palish blue. So I'm getting white and blue on my brush, and I might add in a little of that purple, I don't know, just to see what that comes out like. So I'm going to start out reasonably light. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a little bit of that orange showing through in the middle. Let's see, that's quite light. So this is how you can straighten your line up as well. Best you can. Doesn't matter if you do your blue line right across at the very top, because usually the sun doesn't start to sort of show up until a little bit more further down the way there. Is that straight? Yeah, see, I can never tell if my line's straight from an angle, but I'm going to hope that it is. So I'm going to put that top colour in. There's a lot of purpley reds in this as well. But I'm going to leave that very loose, that orange in the middle. Obviously try and leave it where I see it anyway. Oops. Depends how far you want to come down with your, because you see this is quite a short horizon line, but if you want to come a bit further down, can do. Got a bit of purple back in there. Let's grab a little bit of purple with that, because right up here it's quite purpley. And darker, of course, so that's a pretty colour. I like that. I've not washed my brush off. I'm just grabbing that purple so that I can bring it in a little bit. If you find it's too much purple, just grab some white in with it and soften that out a little bit like that. It does get a little bit lighter as it comes down anyway, so try and cover this best I can. I'm gonna probably stop around about there because I might have a little bit of the dark shoreline at the bottom. As you can see, I've brought my sun not all the way down, but pretty much. So a little bit of purple and the blue and a little bit of white. So purple, blue and white basically. So I've got the Winsor blue, a little bit of the purple. I think that's ooh, can't remember the name of the purple now. It's not lilac because that's lilac. It's I can never remember the name of it, but any purple will do, but even if you're just using red and blue together to make the purple. So I'm just making some subtle lines there in the middle and a little bit more on the side. A bit more white in with it now because again it's lighter as it comes up here. As you can see, there's like pinks going on in there as well. I'm going to grab some of that. Did this a little bit different. As I said, you learn when you practice what works and what doesn't, and sometimes you have to make mistakes. So around the shoreline here it's very pink, so I'm going to go up to my shoreline here. I'm going to cover my orange for the most part, or the under colour. I'm going to get a little bit of red now, a little bit of white to make a pink. Not sure how much pink I want. I'm going to experiment. So white and pink, white and red, that's what I meant to say, white and red. See how it's very subtle, if you can see it. Very subtle colours. Almost looks like a pinky purple. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick a light on the subject here because I feel the light from my window is actually changing. And so let me just see if that helps, whether it is or not. Hopefully it does. Get that out of the way. And so a little bit of pinky purple right on this shoreline here. It's quite a light pink. And there are shades of that pink going through. If you're one of these people that don't like to see the rough marks that are left because of it's not covering that well, then you can just get a little bit more paint on there. The only thing is with that is it doesn't blend as well all the time, so you have to be soft and subtle with it, which is what I'm doing there, because I don't want it to stand out too much. So I'm putting a little bit of that pink back in here and there, because there are elements of it, not much, but some in this here and there. I'm just pushing some of that in. All right, let's see. Okay, I think I need to go just a touch darker on the sides, which I made a mistake. I think I went too dark on that one, but I want to make this just slightly darker. Again, play with the amounts of colour that you have there, because you can see it's slightly darker on the sides. Again, I've got quite a rough area going here, so I mean, you know, when you use oils, it does blend in a lot better than acrylic does, but you've also got to get that colour back again if you're going to go back over it, so it's just about being, you can do it. I'm going to push that brush in and soften it out, which is what I'm doing there. And I use some circle motions very softly, like I'm barely kissing the canvas, to soften it up too. Don't want too much water though, because that will just show up like a sore thumb, so. Nearly there. Just put a little bit of red back in that. Trying to, because that's quite a bright tone at the bottom. And these clouds are quite a bit darker. Okay. All right, so let's make some ripples. I'm going to go back in here and put a little bit more in. I just realised I haven't done that yet. So let me just put a subtle amount of little lines going through. So I'm going to make slightly darker mixture. Again, you're just trying to make a slightly darker mixture of the blues, whether you've gone for this colour. I'm just going to put some very subtle lines in. Cover that up a bit. Through here. Don't want to make them very big. Oops, and try and keep them straight too. Can't see many over here, but I'm just going to put the odd one or two in, just so it. Now, of course, small brushes are good for that, or anything with a fine point. I'm using my very flat tip of this brush. And as you get closer to the shoreline, they show up a bit more. These ones are a little bit, got a little bit more blue in towards the shoreline here. So I'm just going to do blue and a little bit purple, and maybe put a bit of red in there too. You know, as I said, lots of experiments with that. Of course, it's a lot darker when you get to the shoreline here. So I'm just going to put a few, skim those across. A bit of water is a good idea with that. A little bit heavier, of course, as you get to the shoreline. Little overlapping ones as well. considerably darker in this one actually. I'm going to try and, as I said, I like to start slow. If I go too dark too quick, I'll just be like, what did I do? So I'm just going to add them very slowly, just get a little bit darker as I go along. Can see what I'm doing here is I'm going back in here and just deciding I need that a little bit darker. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not sure, but I'm just going to do it anyway. It's not too dark there, so that's quite a bit lighter. So, edge-wise, because this has got a dark edge, you can do that. I'm going to grab red and blue, a bit of red, a bit of purple, whatever. To make it darker, of course, the more red in with your blue, it will go quite dark. So I'm just going to add a very dark edge to this. A bit of water. Reasonably straight line I'm making here. Doesn't matter if yours is not straight. Just the... Okay. Okay, so now before we go on to anything else, I'm going to put a little bit more of an orange tone in where I'm missing that. I'm going to go back to my smaller of the two round brushes, and I want to pick up a little bit more orange. So I'm doing yellow and red, touch of white. I don't want it too bright, of course. And I'm just going to make this here just a little bit brighter in places. Now it's best to go over the tone that you've already got in there, the under colour, because if you try going over top of blue, you'll find that that colour really doesn't look quite right. So I would stay with your orange. If you did manage to paint over it and you don't have any of that orange tone left, then you could always paint a little bit of white in first and then wait for it to dry and then go over it as you wish. See where I'm going over the orange, you can see how it's not showing up anywhere as bright as it is on the other colour here. So to give you that example, that's what I've done, and it's just not showing up as bright at all. So pick up a little bit of red with white, because my shoreline is a little bit more red down here. So I'm just going to try and blend that in as good as I can on the bottom there. I'm just going to push my brush in. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's a bit better. It's a bit more subtle now. And you can also, if you want to put a little bit of that red, pink rather than red, I would say, in here as well. You can play with your colours and like that. Right, I'm going to put some little dots of little subtle amounts of white in. Now, I do have this brush, which is called a fan brush. I'm going to give it a go. I didn't do it on that one, but I'm going to use it without wetting it. I'm just going to get a very small amount of white on the end. But before I actually put it on my, oops, got that in the wrong place, on my palette, I'm just going to dot it on my, like that, because I don't want too much on my painting. So I've got a very soft amount. I'm going to just try, see how this looks. Again, I don't want too much, so it's kind of like a sparkly effect out to sea. Very subtle. Where the sea is, where the sun is shining, I should say, on the sea. So out there, I'm just going to try this. I wanted to try it because I didn't actually ever go before, but not sure how well that shows up. But, you know, experiment, as I say. I might just dab it a little bit dark, a little bit more as I come into the shore. A little bit heavier with my brush. Though you don't see it on here, I just wanted to give you an idea of how you can make that a little bit more interesting. So yeah, I haven't pressed too hard up there, I've just pressed a little bit harder. And these bits here. And that's a very, I call a sparkly sun effect on the water. Generally it's not out here, it's right in the middle, so go slow. Don't put too much on to begin with, because if you overdo it, you'll have to just paint over it again and another go. But almost finished. I'm almost happy, because I'm never happy with anything until it's I'm going to just put a few more brighter, as you can see, yellowish accents in there, and I think I shall be happy then. So I'm going to clean up my little brush, which is my smaller filbert. I'm going to get some clean white to the side. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Clean white to the side, a little bit of yellow, touch of red, but only a little bit. I'll try and make this as bright as possible. A little bit more orange than it is, so a little bit more red in with that to get an orange, more of an orange tone. I haven't made enough, so I'll probably need to make a little bit more, but I'll just bring a little bit brighter look in there, even though, as I said, you might not see it. No, it's still not bright enough. A little bit more red and yellow. A little bit more red and yellow. Then I'll be happy. So anywhere where the sun, around the sun, try and pick up that colour and blend a little in here and there. Again, if you're happy with it, then don't do any more than that. I'm just going to add a little bit more in. Pushing that in there a little bit now. Happier with it now. I've got a little bit more colour in it. Same with, you know, anything down here. If you feel like you want a little bit more colour in, then just put a little bit more in on the shoreline. And I should be done. It is a bit more colourful than my photograph, but I like that because I don't like dull colours. So I couldn't paint Constable because he's just, I mean, even though he's very clever, I'm not taking anything away from him. It's just not my cup of tea. I like nice, vibrant, bright, cheery colours. Okay, I think that's it. It's not too dissimilar to that one, but it's just a little bit different. So thank you for joining me again on the social canvas, and I hope to see you again soon.